All right, thank you so much for staying with us. You're just in time for this conversation. We are taking a look at President William Ruto's 2 years in office. Of course, taking stock of that and helping us to make sense of this particular conversation is Stephen Mukesi, who is a governance expert seated next to me. Thank you so much. Next to him is Arnold Maliba, who is strategic communication advisor of the UDA party. And of course, Willie Kamau, who is a political analyst. Now, before we went for a break, we're talking about, the issues to do with Mount Kenya politics and all that. But right now, I want us to shift our conversation to what is happening in the country as we mark 2 years of the head of state's, rule ever since he was sworn in on the 13th of September, that is in 2022. Let's begin from there. Arnold, let me start with you. What do you make of the 2 years of President William Ruto's rule?
I think it's been momentous, 2 years of so much work being done and also the reshaping of the nation. I need to start with what I consider to be the flagship hallmarks around this particular reign for the last 2 years.
Okay.
Number one, the Kenya Kwanza administration totally redefined the way we do our politics, in that for the longest time we had done the politics of identity. And not necessarily like the kind of politics we were discussing before we came to this particular segment, what forms the headline we were discussing there. And that largely you see now, the Kenyan politics is largely focused towards issues and real issues. Not that identity is not an issue, but before that it was about identity, this region, this tribe, these people, this class and such. Now you realize that the national conversation has largely moved on to now issues. Even the for example, the unfortunate acts that actually happened this year, earlier on this year, the demonstrations in the streets were largely about real issues. People really going out there and saying that we don't care whoever is in power, we just want you to do your work. We want this sorted. So that is important. That might not really feature on the scorecard, but the Fifth Republic is redefined, or rather redefines the entire way we look at the nation by focusing on issues. And then I have got about 48 issues here. I don't know whether you will allow me to go through of what Kenya Kwanza has actually been able to do. That's so that we look at it, because one of those issues that really plagues us has been that there's very little that is reported positively out there. For example,
and that's the thing. Because if you say there are 48 issues that have been able to, the government has been able to achieve, and yet when you walk with people or speak to people on the ground, there's a different kind of feeling. Where's the disconnect between what the government has achieved and what the people are able to feel on the ground? Is it not supposed to be when something is done, they are able to feel? Does it need to be communicated, to them for them to?
I'll still go back to a rather cliche response to that. It's still communication, partly because the communication infrastructure in this country and the regime were not very friendly when they went to elections. That particular fight, that little fight between the Kenya Kwanza administration during the campaigns, because then, and even the Media Council of Kenya confirmed that in the lead up to the elections in 2022, the media was actually biased. It was towards that end. The media itself actually has spoken to that end. So the Media Council of Kenya also pointed out that. So that bad blood really took a little bit much longer than it should have been. Of course, the media really needed to go back to its middle place as an arbiter, simply as an informer, as the mirror of society and everything else. But probably that cold way of treating each other has also affected how a lot of what government has actually done really has been communicated. Across the 5 pillars of Kenya Kwanza, that is agriculture, MSME, economy, affordable housing, universal healthcare, and digital superhighway. I have counted about 48, and those are summaries of things that we've actually been able to do, for example. Okay,
now we'll be getting into that as we go, as I give an opportunity to, I think you'll be responding to that. Let me give an opportunity to Stephen to, give your assessment of the 2 years of President William Ruto's reign.
Well, thank you, Brian. I think the reality is this has been a very complex administration. I said that at the beginning. They've had to balance challenges that were bound to happen. Uhuru's administration, the fourth administration, left a very huge odious debt burden to the next administration. I don't think Raila Odinga would have fared better if he had taken over. So when Kenya Kwanza came in, they had a reality that the economy was the worst part of the equation when it comes to running the government of the day. But however, in as much as President Uhuru came in with an economic council, talked economics first, he failed on certain aspects. And when he did not get it right in terms of the economy, that's when everything else went south. When you tell people that I want to tax you more because we're in a debt situation, you need to communicate clearly why you're taxing them and how you're going to make sure that this money actually gets to work. But before you can even execute on the money that you're beginning to tax Kenyans on, corruption scandals all over the place. Okay. We had a fertilizers issue, we had edible oils whereby we were trying to say that we're going to import oil at a cheaper price, then somebody has taken money and started building houses in Dubai. When we have these kind of situations, the administration begins to have a crack in its progress. And this is what we saw. And suddenly, an administration which had a lot of hope for Kenyans became an administration that started looking like as though it is faltering in all the promises that it made to the Kenyan people. And again, there was a lot of instances whereby there was lack of fulfillment of promises. And these are the things that affected it. But where can we apportion the blame on this particular matter? I do not fault President William Ruto. I fault the fact that he had an administration that, one, carried a lot of people who are thieves, right, who are not out to take care of the interests of the nation like the way President Ruto wanted. So a lot of the cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries failed the president, and that was shown by the instance whereby he had to fire some of them. Legislators failed the president because they came up with tax measures, they came up with legislative measures that were not listening to what the Kenyan people wanted, to the point whereby a president has to withdraw a bill that MPs defiantly go ahead and sign without listening to the people or even doing it as legislators themselves. These are the instances that failed this administration. So to finish, I would just
say... Do they have an opportunity to redeem themselves? You say it kind of failed, but you still have like 3 years to go.
The president does have a lot of leeway to go with regard to this administration, but for the past 2 years, he needs to really relook what has happened. He needs to get rid of corruption, because corruption has marred his administration to a point whereby it cannot be tolerated anymore. And I thank him on this week. He stated categorically that he's going to try and fight corruption. Let's do something about it. Let's not talk about it.
Willie, let's take a look at the promises that were made. And, you know, when we are on the campaign trail most of the time, the one thing that, you know, was coming out was the hustlers, the people at the bottom of the pyramid. Those were the greatest focus when it comes to President William Ruto's, you know, pledges. Have they been satisfactorily considered as far as this rule is concerned for the past 2 years?
On a scale of what? Between 0 and what? We start from there. It will help our audience.
You want to rate them on a scale of, okay, let me give you 1 to 10.
1 to 10. I think William Ruto has done so well in terms of speaking the truth. He has 0.02. The president has managed to collapse every accountability system that is enshrined in our constitution and the sovereignty of this nation. I want to thank the mainstream media, because when guys, you want to really work for the people, you work for the people. Sometimes back when he was being interviewed in State House, the mainstream said him, unfortunately, Mr. President, Kenyans don't trust you. And apparently that was the truth. Kenyans don't trust William Ruto. The good thing about trust is earned. And Kenyans, this is a good lesson for us, that you don't trust someone on the basis of speech, but action. William Ruto is the kind of a leader, Our Excellency President William Ruto is the kind of a leader who knows what to say, but he does not know how to get the job done. When he said that he's going to revive this economy and bring the people from down there up here, that is what the people needed to hear, but he did not tell them how. If we analyze his economic modus operandi of doing things, you will realize that the economy is ailing more than ever before. When we look and analyze at his microeconomics and his macroeconomics down here, the only macroeconomic decisions that he has made that seem to work is working closely with IMF and World Bank, the loans. that are bringing that cash flow in the country. If we look down there, what he has managed to do for the small businesses down there, nothing. Our taxes have been added. The employers' taxes for their employees have scaled up, and unfortunately there is nothing to show for it. So the president has managed to lie and fly a lot in this country. There is nothing we can say as Kenyans. This is, for me, that's why you call me a political analyst, to come and analyze politics here. There is nothing we can be proud of with William Ruto's presidency. And that's just me, that's how I feel. You call us here to give opinions. And I wish he can do better. He has at least 3 years to go, if God allows him to. Because as far as I'm concerned, Kenyans are agitated with him. They can't trust his word. Just let me finish by saying, it took 4 days for the government to give an official report about the Endarasha fire incidents. The IG, his IG, who is supposed to communicate to Kenyans what is happening, has refused to adhere to the court orders. That's the kind of lawlessness that William Ruto has created, because that is his IG. He's not our IG. So if we are to analyze William Ruto, that is the kind of a man he is. Can you imagine Kenyans until the other day, was it yesterday, have been working with speculations. The deputy president, when the fire happened, went to the location and said that 70 children are missing.
Cannot be accounted for.
They cannot be accounted for. They have not even come back to tell us that there has been a head count. When the DCI writes a report and say that they can be accounted for, remember, the mainstream media did a very good work to expose William Ruto's lies, so we can't even trust what they are saying. So we are demanding for accountability, and what William Ruto has managed to do is kill and collapse the accountability process that is enshrined in our constitution and in our sovereignty of this country.
Okay, I want to give Arnold an opportunity to respond to that, and also just because he says, looking at what the promises that had been made, it looks like quite a lot has been achieved, yet that communication has not been able to be put out there. So, what do you say to that?
I'll request that you allow me to be quantitative in this, because if you're going to do a review, it's only fair that we don't go qualitative. And how we feel is all that is there. Because sometimes what you feel is not necessarily what is on the ground. Feelings are not data. Policy has very little to do with how people do feel. It actually has to be evidence-based. So, first of all, about across the 5 pillars that we actually promised, and allow me a little bit of time, because I'm the spokesperson of the party today on this particular platform. That particular office, of course, is domiciled in the office of the Secretary General, but as per this particular setting, I am here, and I'll actually tell you what is there and what numbers say. Number one, we made a promise in agriculture that we will reduce, of course, the price of inputs, farm inputs. We did the fertilizer subsidy very well. What did that give us, for example? Initially, we had about just 300,000 farmers registered on the e-platform. That number swelled to 6.5 million farmers on that particular platform. We actually gave out. Before that, we didn't have e-vouchers. We now put out, people received 1.8 million e-vouchers that would help them to access fertilizer. With that, of course, you remember that as we were going to elections, we tried to even bring down the cost of flour much lower. That didn't really work. That we moved the price of flour from about 200, and then for the longest time it had stagnated at about 170, to now at a stable 130. So now a packet of flour is about just $1. Before that, that was not possible. Maize production, of course, went much higher. We increased by 24 million, going much higher. I will move that very fast so that then I can talk about others. You can actually see that there was an increase, for example, in acreage of coffee by about 3,000 acres. That wasn't there before. It actually had gone down. This is actually the first time acreage under coffee has actually gone higher. It actually has been going down. And that has been actually a deliberate outreach that we actually have worked around that. We've had stuff around value chain. We are having aggregation centers being put up. I'll move fast. You will also talk about the leather industry that we've put up a center. The Kariako market, for example, a common manufacturing facility in Kariako for people who are working on leather. That is one of those facilities you need to move and actually check out. We raised the production of rice, for example. It went much higher. 80% of the rice we consume normally is imported. This time round, we actually raised that local production by 19%. We'll move fast. We talked about MSME. You know, the Kenyan economy, and this will allow me to actually take a minute or so on that. It takes about 3 million shillings to create one white-collar job. If you are to move that a million shillings, 3 million shillings to the bottom, and you know, there's the structure of the economy and then the structure of society. We have got about 10 million people whom some economists love to call the lottery economy. 10 million of them who wake up in the morning and don't know how they will run. They meet anything. Akipata gari ya kuosha anaosha, akipata kufuli hiyo siku anauza, whatever they get, as in nipata potea. 10 million of them. So, to try bring in mobility, the Kenya Kwanza's administration was very, very instructive that they will move capital rather than use 3 million shillings to create one job. Okay. If you brought 3 million shillings to this pata potea down here, you create 60 jobs with that. And that is partly why Hustler Fund came in, for example. The Hustler Fund deliberately is made smaller because it targets the pata potea sector of our society, those 10 million people, bringing capital down here. And there has been about 55 billion shillings. Has that been
effective when it comes to changing the lives of the people of the country?
It really has changed. I'll tell you that because number one, now Kenya Bankers Association, for example, has now approached government and asked them, we've realized, like for example, the repayment rate for Hustler Fund is at 74%. Some banks are struggling even at 50, 60%. Some of them are much lower than that. They actually are bringing in and asking them, can you get us this data? Because now these people are bankable because we have got, and this is data. It's not conjecture. This is not witchcraft. It's not qualitative. This is quantitative. So what have we done? We've brought this money down here. And I'm telling you, that money has been put so small for those people. Because the rest of you, once you feel like you cannot borrow 2,000 shillings, it means you have got an alternative. So that then we do not lose focus and get out there, we focus on that particular segment. And that particular segment is working out well. Okay. And partly you will see that in how the credit ratings for people who initially on that particular scale were non-existent. Allow me to move very fast so that then I don't take a lot of time around that. Then I will, for example, on the digital superhighway, we initially did not have any hubs. Now we have got about 1,500 of them. I think it's 1,491 going across the country. We've been able to actually put up 4 laws to work around Article 43, specifically on health. The social health, we are calling it SHIF, others are calling it SHA. So all those laws to ensure that we then do not just have a few people being able to work around. Immediately those laws actually, and we are starting that in October. Once that works out, and we've been in court. So against so many things that I have here, you can actually see them online. We put out everything we've done here, about 48 of them that we've been able to highlight. You'll see that we've done so much against a backdrop of the debt that Mwakesi spoke about. We've done that against 2 major insurrections. In 2023, we spent a lot of time fighting the Azimio demonstrations in the street and that were hurting the economy. This year, we've had the Gen Zs and other people actually coming out. No one has actually been able to achieve as little as we've done. And you will actually realize that there's an uptick in every sector that we promised. On everything we promised, we have done something about it. Okay.
Yeah. Let me come to you, Mwakesi, as you respond to some of the concerns that Arnold has been able to raise. This is the thing. Despite what he's listing as what the government has been able to achieve, there's been quite a discontent from the public, and talking about 2023 and also 2024. So meaning there's a little bit of a disconnect. People are not feeling some of the good things that the government, quote unquote, has been able to do. What is happening here? Is the government living in denial, or the people are just rebellious?
Well, I think the reality, and I tried to allude to this earlier, is that the government has done some things. It has attempted to try and fix the economic situation that we have been in. And I laud the president for attempting to do that. But he was failed, one, by having people who are crafting laws for him which end up being hit by the court processes. So whatever he's imagining that is good for the people, universal health care, well, the moment it appears in a court, it is hit. When he goes to say that we want a housing levy, because it is not well thought out, well connected with the people, it is hit at the constitutional court. This has been a problem that has plagued this administration. At the executive side, we've had corruption scandals that have been led by cabinet ministers and principal secretaries. These are the things that have made the president, when it comes to the people, a disconnect starts to emerge. Who have failed him is the political class. William Ruto was touted when going into 2022 as a political genius in terms of how he managed his politics, going in to go and get government at a time whereby everyone thought he was to be written off. He took over government. He came up with all these brilliant ideas to help the people, but the people who are meant to go and sell these brilliant ideas to the Mwananchi, they failed on that. And that's why all of these MPs, when there was an insurrection on the 25th of June, they only went after Parliament. They did not go to State House first. They went to Parliament because the people who are meant to be the ones who are either espousing what William Ruto has conjured up at State House has not been communicated to the people. So that lack of communication is where the problem is. So you do not have to wait until 2 years for Arnold Maliba to show up here and start telling us what the government has done. This should be something that MCAs are talking in funerals, in gatherings, in weddings every single day, so that Mwananchi knows that there's a government that's working. So the biggest failure in this republic when it comes to William Ruto's presidency has been how he has managed the political question. And the political question means you must engage with the people. The biggest failure, again, that has been witnessed is the failure of UDA party. He built UDA party as a party of the entire country. Instead, what we're waking up to is Malala being kicked out, I don't know what. There are stories about theft within the party. So many things that are happening within that particular party that makes the president now look like what kind of administration is he running? So to the point whereby he cannot even appoint members of UDA to his own cabinet. He has to go and look for people in the opposition to join his own cabinet. And we call it a masterstroke because he has robbed the opposition of people who would have criticized him during this next phase. But these are only quick fix solutions. They are small bandages. The president needs to come out clearly and work on the political question and educate the masses of what he's doing and actually get legislators and people who actually work for the good of this country. If he doesn't do that, in 2 years, you call me back here again, we will be speaking about how this administration has not performed. So it's about fixing the politics, it's about fixing UDA, it's about fixing everything else that concerns Mwananchi.
Now, this is the thing, let's take a look at some of the things he's been able to mention, and you know, policies that have been put forward, but of course, you know, the court cases have been there. Talking about the Finance Bill 2024, which was actually, you know, withdrawn. Talking about the Finance Bill 2023, which is currently, you know, has also been challenged at the Supreme Court. And these are not just the only things we've been able to see. There's quite a lot of court cases and you know, maybe quote-unquote disregard of the rule of law by the K24 administration as far as you know, the people are concerned, and some, you know, coming up with policies that are going to be affecting the people. Have this been a major hindrance when it comes to the government achieving most of the things that it has promised Kenyans?
I like what my brother has said, that by the time William Ruto was coming into power, people knew he was a political genius. He had managed his political affairs very well. Why is it that now he doesn't seem to, you know, fix his political affairs right now? William Ruto knows that this country does not have a political problem. It has an economic problem. Numbers don't lie. The economy is about numbers. Numbers have challenged William Ruto, okay? And these numbers are exposing him every day. And so if he tries to fix there, and that's why he must appear like he's so weak and helplessly fixing his politics to keep the people busy with politics and turn a blind eye on his economic policies. So that is William Ruto for you. The other thing is, what this guy has said about farming, allow me to say, before I come back to your question, collection of data is not an achievement. You know, we should not come here and celebrate William Ruto and say, hey, William Ruto, you've collected farmers' data. You are the guy. one of the things we are challenging William Ruto is the laws, the bylaws that he's putting in parliament right now. Have you seen? They are draconian, they are demonic, that Kenyans cannot share the indigenous seeds. If you're caught sharing your seeds with your neighbor, you will be jailed, or even there's a heavy crazy. That is the kind of analysis we could look for William Ruto as far as agriculture is concerned. Okay, so my brother, numbers don't lie. Numbers will continue exposing William Ruto. The economy, mifuko ya watu, is saying otherwise, and he knows he cannot continue lying to Kenyans as far as politics is concerned.
And that is the thing when it comes to people feeling the pinch when it comes to their pockets.
Kenyans don't care about. We are not in a political crisis, my brother. We are in an economic crisis, and numbers have been exposed.
I get your point. But to be fair to the government, when it comes to some of the promises that it had made as far as the lowering of the prices of unga, quote unquote, we've been able to experience that from 220 all the way to 130 sometimes.
Can I say something briefly
about that? I want to take a break, but you're coming. Thank you, bro. All right, we do want to take a break. Continue engaging us at K24 TV, at Amoy Brand, that is on X, across social media platforms, and also on our WhatsApp line, what you think about President William Ruto's 2 years in office and some of the achievements and some of the promises that you feel have not been able, he did not get to achieve for the past 2 years till today, right?